All right, lovely people. Big shout out for everyone joining today. Now, let me make sure I got everybody up on stage. We've got the Schiller, NFT Bro, Love for Crypto, Futureverse Pod, Savon. Now, we aren't going to be able to be joined by Chris. Now, he's got his channel, which is Crypto Punk. He's in Thailand. He's not feeling very well today. Hopefully, he's going to be in the room. I certainly look forward to seeing him. Now, before we kick things off, we're going to do a little bit of back-of-house stuff. First of all, a few of the speakers on stage haven't spoken on Twitter before, which is great because the guys up on stage are the ones we want asking like the questions in the future. When the Futureverse do those AMAs, these guys on stage are the ones who need to be asking these questions. So the first thing I want to do, and you guys can play along at home as well, is at the bottom, you'll see you have the ability to share this space. Actually, the top, there's a box with an arrow pointing up. So if all my guests could jump up to the top there, find that little box with the arrow pointing up and share it. And of course, did I even manage to do it right? Don't know if I did. Now, the other thing that's really important is if we can also pin messages to the top, pin those tweets. A lot of the stuff we'll be talking about today, it might be helpful to give context to it. So what we want to be able to do is pin our tweets at the top. So if all my guests on stage can go into their profiles, and once they're in there, find your pinned tweet to the top of the page. And once again, you'll see that you have that option. No, I can't find it. Classic. So you go into the tweet you want to pin, use that up box. You'll see a little microphone at the top. Hit that microphone at the top, and that will share the tweet onto the spaces. Now, these are just a couple of basic things that everybody should know when speaking on spaces. And with today's show, I really want anybody out there who's never spoken on spaces before to take this opportunity and jump up. It's not intimidating or scary. It's something we all need to be able to use to engage with each other. Now, something else I just want to quickly touch on. All my guests on stage, there's another emoji I'd like you to throw up for me quickly, and that's the one where you raise your hand to speak. It looks like that. And when you unmute, that hand goes away. Love for Crypto, NFT Bro, can we get some hands up? Nice. Now, to kick things off, I just really want to say how much I appreciate all these guys that are on stage. I don't have the time in my life to do all the due diligence required to keep up with everything that the Futureverse is building. That's why on all their YouTube channels, I have notifications set. Because without these guys informing me what's going on, there's no way I could keep up. So when these guys pin their tweets to the top of the page, take the time to go through them, follow them to their YouTube channels, set notifications. And if you want to help these guys add value to our ecosystem, you just have to like the tweets, like the shows they put out, subscribe to their channels. It makes a massive difference because these guys do an incredible job. Now, I'm going to go through everybody one by one. I just want to check all your mics are working. In the case I can't hear you, what I'll do is I'll get you to jump down off the stage and then I'll bring you back in again. I'm going to jump over to my co-host, Schiller, first. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for doing this with me today. I'll just ask you quickly, who are you? What's your channel called? Where are you? And what time is it?
Yeah, what's up? How's everybody doing? Appreciate you guys tuning in. Yeah, what's up? I'm Schiller. I'm from Canada. It is 7:08 p.m. And I do Twitch streams and YouTube videos, and that's kind of how I started on Twitch, and just kind of, occasionally throw up YouTube videos, and just been doing that a lot more lately. So on most socials, it's Schillerverse. But again, appreciate you guys coming out here, and I think this is going to be a fun discussion.
Hell yeah. All right, NFT Bro, I've got you next. Who are you? Where are you?
Hello everyone, I am NFT Bro or Josh. I am from New Zealand and yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
All good, brother. Love for Crypto, you're next on the list. Let's check your mic out.
Can you hear me? I'm Scott, Love for Crypto from Manchester, England. It's just past midnight, so I'm not sure how long I'll be here, but see how we go.
I'll be sure to fire questions at you first, brother. I appreciate you being here. Midnight, rough. All right, jump back onto mute, and I'll throw it over to Jerry from the Futureverse Pod.
Hey guys, Jerry here from the Futureverse Pod. It's 11 a.m. here in Canberra, Australia. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, looking forward to the chat.
Thanks, buddy. We hear you loud and clear. So, Vaughn, get ready for it, guys. I don't know if my speakers or headphones can handle the bass. Let's go, brother.
Man, you are hilarious. What's up, everybody? Thank you first and foremost for putting this all together, man. Really, really appreciate that. But yeah, it is about 7:09 p.m. in Atlanta, Georgia.
Amazing. And dude, how is it we didn't get to hear you on the trailer for the Futureverse? Did you not get your...
Hey, man, I'm calling. I can't call it, man. You know, it was a lot of great folks in there, you know, and hey, we can't take for granted the fact that they even allow folks to, within the community, to submit something to get used. So didn't work out this go around. I did submit something, but yeah, I'm sure there'll be other opportunities. If there are, I'll submit again. We'll see.
Yeah, I didn't make it on either, brother. I gave it a go, gave it a real hot go, but didn't make it through. But congratulations to everyone who did manage to get their voices heard on that trailer. And congratulations on receiving those fluffs. Very generous and very nice of them to include us all in it. Now, I want to kick things off quite quickly by going through everybody and just understanding how you became a content creator. And I mean, this is an elevator pitch, guys. How long have you been in crypto? When did you start your channel? What did you cover to start with? I mean, did you start with crypto or did you cover underwater welding or crop rotation in the 1400s? And how did you find the Futureverse? Schiller? That's you, bro.
Yo, perfect. Okay, so I started back with NBA Top Shot. Yo, who remembers NBA Top Shot? So I think that was one of the biggest onboarders. And honestly, I'm kind of looking at what Futureverse is, and I really think that it's one of the potentially biggest onboarders since that, and I think half the space isn't aware of that, but we'll get into that in a minute. So I covered Top Shot for a while, and then when I started kind of branching off beyond that, just because there was a lot happening within the NFT space, I got into Bored Ape Yacht Club. So I may have one of the only videos in existence of someone streaming minting Bored Apes, which was an absolutely crazy experience. And honestly, I've just been covering the space in general over the past, I guess, 2 years now. And the way that I found Futureverse was actually through Max. So shout out to Max. He has FLUF World Twitter Spaces, I believe, every Tuesday as well. I'm down in the audience if you guys are wanting to give him a follow. But I remember him talking about it forever. And then Boomer, who's a friend that I held this project before in Land Vault, he started talking about it too. And I was like, okay, like I'm starting to see stuff. And then I did a deep dive into Futureverse pod or into the Futureverse Jerry here, and I was like, wow, there's a lot going on here. I don't think people realize what it is. And you know, checking out the Discord and everything, it just seemed like really, really good vibes, and I liked everything. And now I've kind of just really started focusing on everything Futureverse.
Man, it's awesome to have you here. I'm so glad you're doing it. And also, yeah, massive shout out to Max and Som down the rabbit hole. If you want to refine your skills at talking on spaces, jump on their show. They are incredibly welcoming, and just get up there, say hi, and share your views every week. We'll have to share that post as well. Now, love for crypto. How long you been in the game? When did you start making content, and what did you start with?
So I started late, well, December 2017. We was looking at XRP and Interledger Protocol. So we've basically been in interoperability from the start, just waiting for things like this to come along, to be honest. Even the early videos used to speak about micropayments and things, paying for things, you know, try to get our heads around it and merging digital with the physical world. And it was always just a pipe dream, and literally now, nearly 5 years later, it's here. Do you know what I mean? I keep saying to people, Ready Player One cannot be underestimated at this moment in time. That film is a legitimate vision of where all this is heading. It's just how long it takes to achieve what you see in that film. But yeah, got on Futureverse through Chris, CryptoPunk. It was mainly just XRP. When it was just FLUF World and the rabbits, I've got to be honest, I wasn't interested. It just looked like another generic NFT project, and I was still waiting. And then all of a sudden, Chris kept pecking me head about it, wouldn't shut up. So I had another look at it, and I realized it was multiple companies coming together. They'd built Root with an XRP-L bridge, an Ethereum bridge. It was literally being built in front of my eyes, what I've been waiting for 5 years. So yeah, I'm super excited about the future.
We all have such diverse skill sets up on the stage right here, because we all cover it in different ways. And the way you've been covering that UI just so everyone knows, we created a group. We created just a group on Twitter the other day, and since then, there's this Twitter group we've created between ourselves is red hot with so much information. I have learned so much in the last 2 days that we've been chatting, or week I think it's been, including I've now got a guild for crypto walkers through Chris, really amazing stuff. And also what you just touched on, Scotty, was micropayments. I think later on we might need to touch on that. Stefan Thomas, the old CTO of Ripple and his company Coil, they're going to be doing amazing things, which can certainly help figure out this, how we're going to deal with this subscription model and how we pay for things in the future. All right, NFT bro, you're up next, buddy. How did you find the Futureverse?
All right, well, I'm probably a bit more fresh to crypto and NFTs than some of the folks up here, but so NFTs probably wasn't until about August 2021, and not soon after that, I found FLUF World, I think through Twitter. I think I saw some tweets from Brooke Howard-Smith or someone like that, and jumped on that bandwagon pretty quickly. And not long after that, I started NFT Bro. It was about October, so we're just over a year old now. The reason for that was I found that not many people really understood what NFTs were or any of the language around it. So I just started with some, I started on Instagram actually, with some videos on what NFTs are, how you can mint them, how to save on gas. I was into Z-Run initially too, so posted some Z-Run races on there. And then, yeah, kind of deep dove further into FLUF World and Futureverse, and I'm mainly focusing on that now. I've got some NFT weekly wrap-up videos on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram, and most of you will probably know me on Twitter for posting AMA notes from Futureverse afterwards. I try and get those out pretty quickly so that anyone who's missed any of the FLUF World or Futureverse pod AMAs can keep up to date with those, because there's so much happening in this space. My goal is just to try and keep people in the loop and up to date in a pretty easy way.
Thanks, mate. And there's two things you touched on there. One, you get those notes up so quickly. I don't know, you're using AI? Is there a ChatGPT or something happening in the background there? Because, mate, I can barely type my own name. And the other thing was Instagram. Obviously, there's lots of different formats we can use, and something I just want to point out with everyone on stage here, they're content creators. There's a big difference between a content creator and an influencer. An influencer is someone who gets paid to shill makeup on Instagram. Content creators work really hard researching information, and they love sharing it. And by sharing the information, it also solidifies their place in the community because they're adding value. And that's the other thing, the other reason why we're here today. If you've ever thought about making content, this is the room to be in. It doesn't matter if you've got an old YouTube channel that's been dormant. If you love the Futureverse, there's plenty of room for everybody, and everyone here is happy to help you. Now, I see a few hands raised down in the audience too. We will definitely jump to some questions later on, but I just want to bring the rest of the guys through. Futureverse, Jerry, man, you're going to do some rebranding soon, I hear. How's that going? And how did you find the Futureverse?
Yeah, maybe. So I don't know if people saw that I put a tweet out saying, if I should rebrand, given some people have sort of mentioned that maybe that the Futureverse pod branding might be a little bit confusing with the official channels. So open to feedback on that. And to my surprise, Shara Senderoff actually reached out and wants to have a chat about it. So that'll be interesting. Going to do a video with her at some point in the next week or so. But yeah, my journey started in sort of late 2019 into Web3. Basically, just finally became curious about crypto because the more I looked into sort of the fiat currency systems and what we consider money these days, the more I realized it has problems, and I was becoming disillusioned with traditional finance, and crypto started to make some sense to me. So I went down the rabbit hole pretty deep, got really deep into DeFi, and was actually quite sort of deep in the Luna ecosystem. So decided to have a break from my day job and take some unpaid leave and start a channel on Luna. And it only lasted a few months. It was a wild ride, but Luna obviously went under pretty much. So I was a bit disillusioned with everything and sort of starting to question, what my place in Web3 is. And then I found the Futureverse through some a few friends and prominent community people. I won't name them, but they got it onto my radar with the Seekers Mint, and it still took me a few months to actually go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and understand that there is a whole ecosystem here. And once that penny dropped, I just sort of couldn't stop thinking about it. And really all I wanted to do was basically just try and get it on people's radars a lot more so they can understand how vast our ecosystem is. So yeah, it's just been full throttle ever since full time, just trying to get as much information out there as possible and into people's hands in a sort of a digestible way, because it is a bit like trying to eat an elephant, trying to understand our ecosystem. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Yeah, and we really do appreciate having you here, because the amount of content you get out and so quickly, whether it's just recording what's happening in the smokers room on Discord, anybody who's not on the FLUF World Discord or any of the Futureverse Discords, you got to check those out, because that's where all the information is. And as you said, we've come from very different backgrounds, most of them being in crypto and finance. It's so refreshing to be in an ecosystem that's positive. This is entertainment, this is fun, but at the same time, it encapsulates commerce and every other aspect of our lives. So I enjoy being in this space. It's a nice distraction from all the rest of the macroeconomic problems going on in the world, and such a great community too. Now, as I chuck it over to Savon, how do I pronounce your name? How did you find the Futureverse?
Yep, you pronounced it perfectly, Savon. And the way I came across this all was actually a friend of mine, DeMarco Reddins. He was super heavy into NFTs early last year. Now, he and we go back crypto late 2017. We both got in, and we were looking at some things like XRP and Ethereum, but also a lot of ICOs, and so for me, fell out of it for a while. But at that time, what kind of got me into crypto in the first place was my partner at the time's stepdad was mining, or uncle, Ethereum. So he mentioned it to me because I was kind of like Jerry mentioned, I was going through at that time the process of realizing what fiat currency was or what it wasn't, and kind of just doing that whole unlearning of a lot of things that are taught to us, and money, finances, wealth, that was in that category. So I started looking more at gold, and started my hand at investing in a little bit of trading. And so by the time 2019 really comes around, I'm spending several hours a day just getting deeper in the ecosystem, learning, teaching myself what I can to really be up to speed. 2020 comes around. By that time, I've really been full-time investing, and decided that what really was needed in the space was more education. So really, how can I Trojan horse financial literacy with the innovation that's coming with, distributed ledger technology, Web3, all of that. So that's where the channel Native Assets really came from. I had a pre-existing YouTube that I started in 2020 for music production, and I decided to go ahead and pivot that. I started a separate channel, but wanted to use some of the inbuilt momentum from the other one, so change that over to being the primary channel. I put all the educational material out through, and isn't a Futureverse specific channel, but what I do at this point is focus a lot more on Web3. Started investing heavily into NFTs and everything late last year, after I kind of had this mindset shift in terms of opportunity and feel like I better understood things. And so my material is really just around trying to get people up to speed with what I think are some of the more critical aspects of this space. I've been more focused on Web3 than I have been on crypto, because I think that that's a better entry place for most people to really understand what the technology does versus the tokens, or quasi-stock that a lot of these companies issue. So rather just talk more directly about the products and the tools and the projects that are in the space. And so Futureverse just made a lot of sense as I spent more time really assessing as much as I could about this space and trying to balance actual use case and applications that are being built out that I do think can bring on those millions of people that so many companies talk about, but also balance that out with what I think is tremendous potential upside as well from an investment standpoint. And so, as vast the ecosystem is, so many of y'all on stage, particularly you, Jerry, were so helpful as I was getting back into the space and trying to wrap my head around a lot of things I missed, because I came in through ASM and AFA, and so fell away. And then by the time I came back, really there was a lot to get up to speed on. So yeah, glad to be here.
Mate, and we are very glad to have you in this ecosystem with us, because you bring your own unique flavor as well. Something you touched on at the very beginning, I don't think any of us learned about reserve fractional banking when we were at school, or how to offset taxes, or anything that was going to financially give us an advantage in the real world. But once you move into crypto, you do take the blinders off in a way, and you start to see behind the curtain, and you realize that a lot of us have been misled. And once you get into crypto, you start thinking a lot deeper. But it's great to have you here, dude. And I really think we need to open up the room now. And obviously, guys, if you want to jump in on what anybody's saying, just throw your hand up, because there's a topic I'm really curious about. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are curious about it too, because I don't own a female fluff. Like so many people in this room, I wasn't there for the initial mint. I didn't get into FLUF World, till about seriously about 4 or 5 months ago. And even then, I gradually moved my way in like everybody else did, Oh, maybe I'll get a seeker. Okay, I'm ready for a party bear now, And then I started to learn more and more and go, nah, man, I need a fluff. Very happy to have secured my fluff, but at the same time, the female is out of my range. It's going to be out of a lot of people's ranges. So I've got the scenes, I got 2 burrows, and I'm thinking, do I need more eggs? Because there must be a possibility that we're going to have some sort of a dating service so that we can scale out this ecosystem, because it needs to grow. The fluffets are going to do it. Anyone want to throw their hand up and have an idea of how this is going to work, how this breeding mechanic's going to play out? Jump in, Shell Up.
Yeah, okay, cool. So just kind of still on this idea from Zedrun, because it was another popular NFT collection for a while that was just about horse racing, and the way they had it was the studs. And so if you owned a female horse, you were able to kind of put it up for a certain price. And I think that that's one of the interesting discussions, where is it something where there's potentially like a set fee for getting into the world, or having these flufflets or other different creatures that are created, because that's what the eggs are for, right? It's for bringing in potentially different collections or other creatures. And how do those breeding or creature creations actually happen? And so the question I guess I would throw out there, and anyone has a thought, is do we see it where there's kind of like a fixed fee, so every breed costs something like $5 per se, or is it something that the owners of these assets get to decide, and then it's whatever the market kind of decides in that situation?
NFT bro, jump in, brother.
Yeah, I'd just like to continue on from what Chilla was saying, because I was in Zedrun for a bit too, and that was where my kind of thought process as well. But maybe it's not just one of the sexes. Maybe you can put up a male or a female with an egg, and then you can you could pay a price or however it works, because we've got the rarer furs, and I think we're going to see some different fur combinations and flufflets that we actually haven't seen yet. So maybe if you've got a rarer fur, you might be open to breeding with it. You might be able to put it up, or pay a bit to get someone to access your rare fur.
Just before I throw it over to you, Jerry, I just want to add, I really want this conversation to be had, because I don't want anybody in this market to overextend themselves by getting a female because they feel they need to have it to be part of this ecosystem being built out going forward. So everyone just put your brakes on. Let's talk about it for a little bit. I mean, we've got people in the room who know these answers, but the female fluffs are expensive. So don't think you must have one to be a part of this ecosystem. You don't. They're going to work this out for all of us. Jerry, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, one thing I've been sort of thinking of, they've kind of mentioned that they've been building out a protocol for breeding. So I think when you think of the scale of this, we're probably thinking too small still, where we're thinking about, okay, I'm going to buy a male, going to buy a female, going to buy an egg, going to create my own little flufflets. But I have a feeling it's going to be so much wider and bigger than that, where it might be you just put whatever asset that you have in, a male or a female fluff, or even an egg, and it's got a weighting, and the weighting that you get assigned from that asset, probably, it'll factor in rarity and stuff like that. Basically, it would just mean you earn X amount of points or X amount of the pool of assets. And I think the idea is going to be more sort of closely aligned to what's happening with the ASTO protocol and ASTO energy and staking and the mining of Gen 2 brains, where we want to keep the price really low and simple for new entrants to come in. So if we're going to have flufflets, we're not going to be selling these things on OpenSea. It's probably going to be an app that a kid can come in, spin up on their smartphone, and buy a flufflet, and then jump straight into the third kingdom and start running around with it. And I just think that the pool of funds will be basically redistributed back to the people who are staking, or whatever the term that they use for putting them into the breeding pool will be. And I think it's going to be more like that. I'm not necessarily sure you're even going to be able to get your own flufflet per se. It might just go into a generalized pool, and then if you want a specific one, you need to buy it. That's what I'm thinking anyway.
And I like the sound of that. That does sound like a far more structured economic balance that we're going to be needing for this. So Vaughn, what are your thoughts?
So thank you, Jerry, for taking it up to that level, because, yeah, like when you really do think about what the goal is as far as how many people to bring in to the order of millions and millions, it's going to require something far more, obviously rule-based, but something where it's rather clear how it's laid out, but can facilitate that sort of volume coming through. Now, to take it a step further, I'm actually of the opinion that this is going to play into not just, the flufflets that we have seen, but potentially making, call them miniaturized versions of other collections as well. And I know that there's been some speculation about Doodles will be moving over to the Root Network, but I could foresee a future where there are other collections that are partnered with the Futureverse ecosystem. Maybe even they migrate over to the Root Network, right? But even if they don't, let's say you have, a Bored Ape, or you have a Party Bear, you have some other collection that's partnered or within this, basically that works with this protocol, and you want that to be in the Third Kingdom to some extent. If you own an egg, and then you also own a Bored Ape, or you own some other collection that's a part of this protocol, then the same thing applies there, where somebody can mint that miniature version as an alternate character. And then same thing there, the funds that go through that choice get redistributed later. Because I'm thinking about the Third Kingdom and the idea that there would just be, not just be, but the collections that are already within the Futureverse, and then hundreds of thousands, millions of these flufflets. It would seem to me that for the sake of, even just lore diversity, there would be some other characters that would also be allowed into this space as well. So just a thought, just an idea. And I think that as we're seeing this kind of motif with Artifact and the Animus Egg, that there is going to need to be some sort of mechanism or vehicle that imports other characters into the world. And so we could see that that's another way that plays out.
We could also see the floor price of these eggs going up after this conversation. Love for Crypto, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm just thinking there, because it says on the website, so clearly at first they're going to be producing flufflets from parent fluff DNA. It's an incubation chamber. Interestingly enough, they're called electromycelium genome generators. That's the EGG in the egg. Now, the eggs are released in 5 rarity types with mystery attributes that alter performance. Just how they'll affect FLUF World's future generations is a code waiting to be cracked. I think there's something interesting in there where it says alter performance. I think we might find out in the future that you can breed 2 kinds of flufflets. You can breed an empty form to simply be a little avatar that you run around in, or you might, by the sounds of it, be able to produce a flufflet with function that's got a genome brain attached to it, similar to the fingers and now the buzzes. So I think it's extremely interesting that it's called a genome generator, and that the attributes of the egg actually alter performance of the flufflet it's producing, not just the parent DNA. So yeah, it's extremely interesting moving forward what the eggs are going to do, and the flufflets function for that, because they seem to have some sort of performance. Don't just say alter traits, it's alter performance. So I'll let others speculate on what that means.
And this is why we have the brains trust up here, right? Because for eggs, I was just thinking, if you have a rarer egg, it just punches out flufflets a lot quicker. And if it's a more common egg, then it incubates for longer. You're going to have to wait another day or 2, like the cooldown on the thingy art. But you guys, you're taking it to a whole nother level. Now, we do have some people requesting to speak, and I really want to bring you up, but I want to make sure all the guests get a little bit of time because we've got so many of them. Now, something else I wanted to touch on, if we're finished with the breeding, which we won't be finished with the breeding, that's a conversation that won't end. Burrows. How are the burrows going to work with the mycelium involved? Because I mean, those land spots and everything else involved. So Vaughn, I see you, brother.
So, way I'm thinking that may play out, and a lot of this is based off what's already been communicated, but the burrow seems to be the piece that is effectively going to be the hub, right? So all of these other, and we know that for a lot of wise reasons, activities within this ecosystem are going to be gamified, right? I think of it, if we want to draw a parallel in Grand Theft Auto, an open world game, Red Dead Redemption, there are locations you have to go to do certain actions. Whereas, Back in the past, you just open up a menu, say doom doom dot, like same thing in Uniswap. If you want to make a trade, you pull up this website. But imagine that all these things are really turned into how you would do it in the real world. You need to go to a bank, you need to go to this place if you wanted to buy apparel, so on and so forth. And I think that the boroughs effectively are that hub for an individual that can be shared with other people. But then with these land parcels that come with it, my understanding or guess at this point is that these portals that we've seen, and that there'll be some sort of connection with your borough that can transport you to come out on one of your parcels, depending on where it is. And that having the borough is going to be partly how you are able to achieve or acquire more mycelium by having your thingy run around. Maybe your buzzy, if you want to make music, perhaps you need to be in your borough or have access to some kind of studio, or depending on what's in your borough, augments what you can do with some of these other assets. But I think that this is one of the areas that has the most mystery around exactly how it's going to function. It definitely feels like it's going to be integral to actually get the full utility out of a lot of these other assets that are in the collection that we know work together.
It's interesting what you said about GTA, because it was often the place we would go to get changed, change our clothes, do another job. Speaking of changing clothes, we might have to get onto drug receipts in a minute as well, because party bears, party packs, they've got to be coming soon too. But while we're on these boroughs still, I mean, I could really imagine myself quite easily facilitating the ability to interview Snoop Dogg, maybe in his borough rather than mine. His is a little bit flashier than my den, but we should have the opportunity to be able to run our shows out of these boroughs. I was mentioning it before in our chat, if we can get these cameras set up in such a way, and I'm sure there's something Beyond is capable of creating, where we can invite guests in their avatar form into our boroughs, sit down on the couches, maybe in the hot tub, and we can have a chat and interview them there. I think that'd be amazing. Anyone else got any thoughts on the boroughs?
I can jump in here. So I made a video a while back, and I noticed that on the website, if you compare the boroughs, you can kind of see these like hamster huts or houses, tubes. I don't know what you want to call them, but it kind of looks like some of these boroughs like actually connect. So I'm curious, is it something where if you have like a really insane setup of all these boroughs, is it something that people are going to want to go to more? Is it, let's say if I'm saying with like the mycelium farming and the craziness of it, I think there's a lot of different opportunities or things that we could look at. And I think the overarching thing, which isn't like speculative, but just kind of talking about people right now, for myself, when I go to certain events in person right now, I just don't feel like I'm enjoying it as much. A lot of the time it costs, $100. You got gas, food, the event tickets if you go to something. And I really do enjoy just kind of having a night home relaxing. And, staycation was a thing that was really pushed by a lot of people for vacations of just staying home. And I think we're slowly entering a time similar to back when COVID first started, to be honest, where you were at home and you were just finding things that were entertaining. And then it was by force in a way. And now I think it's by choice. And I do really, really think that we are going to continue to go into a realm where people are enjoying and wanting to spend more time online. And I think what the boroughs and Futureverse are doing with this entire kind of metaverse is really something that people shouldn't be taking kind of for granted. There's going to be a lot of people that go for these visions. Obviously, we've seen other collections announce their metaverse, but I think that whole sector is really, really about to be the next big wave.
Definitely the gamification behind the boroughs to make us want to go there, enjoy spending time there, do all those tasks and things that aren't a chore but are enjoyable to do while in that borough, because that's going to how we're going to earn these rewards, because we've got to do work. You can't just have them given to us passively. We need to go and harvest or do whatever's required. They'll figure that out. Love for Crypto, what do you think?
So you're not wrong there. There'll be a little bit of that, but there'll also be a play to earn chilling aspect of it. I think a lot of people are missing the esports aspect of AI versus AI. When the AI FA, FIFA League and other games like that kick off and we all own teams and Atom AI cars are racing themselves, we'll be team owners sat in boroughs watching our teams compete on a big screen. It's like if anyone who owns an Oculus Quest, if you go into the theatre, you've got theatre mode. You can sit and watch any film you want as if you're in the theatre, and you literally look about and there's other people's avatars there. It will be like that, but in your borough, watching AIFA World Cup. If people see the PUBG World Cup and the Fortnite World Cup and all the streaming on Facebook at the moment, it will be like that, but everyone in a borough. And then it will go way beyond that into VR when it's going to be incredible. I'll let Savon carry on there because it just popped up.
No, to your point, I think that it's a really concentrated play on the VTuber and virtual influencer development that we've seen over the last few years. I mean, Lily, I was riding in the car the other day listening to a song I've heard for years, and it wasn't until that day that I realized that song was from a virtual influencer. It was from a metastar named Teflon Sega, and I was just mind blown. So I'm like, man, I never would have thought. But point being, as a lot of this technology removes a lot of the friction and doesn't feel like a chore to participate in VR, and I think that particularly one of the announcements that may come out, and there's a lot of collaboration with Jadu, but I think that whether it's an acquisition of Jadu or something connected to an XR company, that I think we will also see some sort of application put out that runs on the root network that allows people to do motion capture to animate their avatar, but do it through a camera instead of needing a suit, because those sort of applications and technologies already exist. I literally was watching a video of a guy doing it on YouTube a couple of weeks back, but they're just not very well known, and I would imagine that there aren't that many that are very good. So when we get technology like that, and all you have to do is, put your cell phone on a little tripod stand, and then you can literally animate your avatar within the space, set up some cameras, or have some camera, some kind of default setups already done that would work from a kind of production, hosting, streaming standpoint, then I think that really is going another step of making it easier for people to get into that sort of content creation without needing to have as much background as they would have otherwise needed to pull something like that off.
Yeah, nice. Scotty, just before I jump to you, buddy, NFT, bro, I want to know what you're excited about for these burrows. Scotty, you're on, bud.
Well, yeah, I think, we have to remember that the team are going to want us to be in our burrows as much as possible. So I keep, whenever I jump in, I see the vending machine in the corner. Well, no, sorry, arcade machine. So I'm expecting pretty soon we'll be able to play some sort of mini game on that. And as people have said, we've got the screen there, so multiplayer must be around the corner. I'm looking forward to having friends and party bears in the burrows so we can all hang out and, as was mentioned, watch some AI League happening. And then also we've got a bed and we've got a wardrobe. So maybe that's the burrows are where we go to change the accessories on our party bears. And also I'd say we probably have to go in or through our burrows if we're going to go into our Adam garages and do customizations on our cars. I'd expect there we just jump down the lift and we're in our garage, and so it's just all the team are always going to be thinking about how can we get people in these burrows as much as possible. And one little thing that I've noticed, and we've speculated about it in the past, I'm still not sure how it's going to come to light, but there's little gold coins all around the burrows. What do we think about those?
That we need some more speculation on. We really do. I want to jump into those wardrobes in just a moment, but I'll go to you first, Scotty. What do you got, bud?
Yeah, just what Savon was saying about showing it a video and it being able to dance. Again, mix that with a brain. Bots that learn, something that I think a lot of people are overlooking a little bit. Bots that learn, you could potentially teach your AR avatars. You could create a professional dancer in teaching it the fundamentals and show it videos of other professionals. Again, it could become, you could have a dance league, street dance league, break dance league, ballroom dance league, all AIs that you've taught, fed it videos, taught it to dance, and then this virtual AIs going crazy. It's endless possibilities. It's absolutely fascinating, and I think the gold coins will be root coin. There'll be the root token. Possibly.
And while I've got everybody here, if anybody can teach my avatar rabbit how to crip walk, I'd really appreciate that. AI guys, I'm looking at you. Now, with these wardrobes, can someone explain to me, the party bears are dynamic in a way that we can change their clothes. Are we going to be able to change the clothes and these traits on the rabbits as well? Or is it just going to be the party bears when these party packs drop? Scotty.
Again, don't underestimate what the buzzes can make because on one line of the website it says consumables. There'll be crafting consumables, which to most gamers that means like health potions and level ups and whatnot. But it also says unique items, and the party bear's friends. So there's a good chance that they'll be making new hats, new glasses, new gloves, new everything, new shorts, new tops. Anything you train your buzzies to make, or maybe it's just a click it and it makes it like the thingies are. It's veils yet to be pulled, aren't they? But it is fascinating. But yeah, I think the buzzies might be involved with a little bit of that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about these buzzies. It was one of the things I got into early when I got my sort of starter kit for the Futureverse, when I was ticking those items off. Now, a lot of us didn't get the trait drops. So we're buying other people's items that they've managed to benefit from, which is a very clever mechanic that the Futureverse came up with, in order to keep the economics rolling and stopping from people having to flip their Genesis collection by having these other assets being dropped to them to help them finance their way through the game, which we are all currently playing. Everyone in this room is currently playing the game. Now, as I bought other people's items, there is some part of me that hopes that these items will be getting more trait drops on top of them to keep that ecosystem moving out, because I got a party bear. Now, I'm really hoping my journey with having trait drops coming to me is with those party packs. And that's certainly what the wardrobe is going to be for. Does anyone have any speculation on drug receipts? Because I spoke to Arlo Eisenberg and he kind of might have let slip that we could be expecting drug receipts in these party packs. Music, what else do you think we're going to get? And I'm happy to bring people up on stage now, but we'll go for Love for Crypto first, and then I'll start bringing people up from the crowd. Hold on. I was talking about the party packs. How we're going to, one, obviously the rabbits, we can possibly be able to dress them with what the buzzies create, but at the same time, what's going to be in these party packs? You know, music, dance moves, what else do we know, and how far off do we think they possibly could be? We got Jerry with his hand up. I think we'll take it.
Yeah, one thing I've been thinking about with the party packs is it's been well known for a long time there's at least 30 prominent DJs that are a part of that. So my thinking is, as part of the party pack, maybe there's an integrated brain that's been pre-trained to these DJs' beats and their style of music that then you can integrate into creating your own tracks that are inspired by those artists.
Yeah, that is good. That is good. Because I mean, I think we'll all remember I rebranded from Mometa Music to Mometa Media because I love music. That was my background that got me into this whole NFT space and out of the finance side of things. I know Savon likes music as well. I want to hear what he has to say.
Nothing much to add there other than I think that will likely could be a good opportunity for them to debut the first activation with Warner Brothers. I want to say, Universal Music, excuse me. I want to say that's one of the companies that invested in. I know it was a damn record label. Jerry will know for sure him, but that record label, Baby Keem invested. So perhaps the first version of it, is kind of like the Genesis collection, but over time and down the road, that is one of the mechanisms through which they bring on new artists or new people who are now collaborating with the Futureverse.
Yeah, all of these aspects have really changed the way I've looked at the party bears, because I haven't been tied into just what they're wearing and just what they're holding. Knowing that the possibility to be able to customize that to something that represents me more means that as long as I like the fur pattern on them and the expression they've got, then the possibilities are endless. Now, I've got a couple of people up on stage. Kat, you asked first to come up here. Have you got anything you want to add?
Hey, thanks so much for having me here. Very interesting space. I jumped in just because of the title and talking about content creators, and then I see you guys are really focused on the FLUF project, which I learned a lot about, so that's really interesting. Definitely going to check it out. But I kind of had a question for you guys. I didn't catch the beginning of the space, but I wanted to know from your perspective as content creators. I'm familiar with Schiller and the Schillerverse, actually, a fellow Canadian here. And I'm just curious to know with your, I'm a content creator. I owned a bakery and I create content around that with my recipes and on YouTube and TikTok and everything. And then I also have a podcast as well too that we just started, my husband and I, in Web3. And I'm just curious to know for you guys who've been creating content maybe longer in Web3, what you found has worked, both within an ecosystem, like maybe within this FLUFverse or this Futureverse project that you guys are talking about. What have you found that's really resonating with people? And then when you're trying to talk about Web3 NFTs to other people and you're using content as the platform and the medium, i.e. through video, let's say, what are you finding that's working in terms of like, getting more views, beating the algorithm, and really engaging the right audiences?
Thanks for your question. That's a great question. I'll kick it off to the Brains Trust up here in just a moment. But with Web3, it's all based around community. We are cutting out the big corporations with this new technology. And because it's all community-driven and community-based, educating those communities, the communities are desperate for the information. And the more we work together to give it to them, the more the traffic that's driven towards us. So, all right, I'm going to throw it over to Savon, then I'm going to go to you, Tybo. Savon.
Yep, spot on. I would say that to begin with, just look at what communities you're already a part of, right? Because if you're already in this space, there was something that brought you here. And then practice and get some experience by making some information around that, whatever that might look like. And so that should be pretty helpful in getting some initial traction early on. But then I think aside from that, don't think about it so much as Web3 content as it is just content, and ask yourself, what unique perspective are you bringing to the table, and what is it you want people to get out of it? Because typically you either have to have incredibly compelling content, or you need to have some very compelling style that you use, because somebody will sit through a very generic video if the content is really good, and somebody, the opposite can be true as well. If the style is really good, the content may not be the most mind-blowing thing, but it's going to be a reason to keep people there. So really focus on getting one of those things right from what you're producing, but then also focus on the click-through rate. So if no one clicks on your video or your podcast, then there's no way to get that traction. So on YouTube, that's the thumbnail. If they don't like the thumbnail, they're not going to read the title. They're not going to click on it. As far as it goes with the podcast, you have to think about titles and making it search engine optimized. So something that can be really helpful there, if you are struggling on your own, is look up Google Trends with some keywords that you were thinking about using and compare them and see which ones may be stronger. And it's also something that you can lean on ChatGPT at this point to get some help with as well.
You got a follow-up question, Kat?
Yeah, just to add on to that, thank you so much, Savon. I just wanted to say, like, what you found has been, that quality content that gets through to people, because I see a lot in the space that, memes always win and entertainment always wins. But what else is there beyond just, the entertainment that, distracts people from, the state of the market currently? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, one thing that I'll add is knowing all these guys on stage and knowing the types of content that they put out is all very different from each other for most parts. Whether it's very quick, up-to-date information, or it's deep dives, or it's visual, or what it's going to be. So when I needed to add value to this ecosystem we're talking about today, no one was covering a very basic content layer. And I said, well, there's a lane that these guys aren't covering that's going to be very good for new people who are going to adopt. So just trying to be very niche as well. Don't try and cover too much. Find your lane, make sure it's nice and niche, know lots about it, and provide the information that no one else is really getting into. There might be a gap there. I'd look for that. And thanks so much for coming up and asking your question. All right, Tyvo, I'm going to chuck it over to you, buddy.
Well, I think Savon said everything really well. I would add work on an emailing list, and really consider the current stage of Web3's, like the majority of the audience is either already echo chambered into their own like group and holding on to that during the bear market. So like trying to tap into those communities if you can, and just focusing on bringing out content that's just for a general audience, because right now Web3 is kind of a wasteland in terms of creating reach. But if you're consistent when the bull market does return and you've got something of value in Web3, I think you'll do well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm going to jump back to you in a moment, Tybo, but I just want to mention, if there's anybody in this room who has never spoken on Spaces before, you don't even have to have a earth-shattering question. You can just jump up here and say thank you to your favorite content creator, but I'd love to see people hitting that mic button, jumping on stage and speaking on Spaces for the first time. So that way you'll feel confident doing it in the future. The next AMA is coming up. I expect to see everybody who's a guest with me today asking questions, just getting used to talking on Spaces. Now, Tybo, I mean, you're a master in this class. Let's get speculative. What do you want to add?
I actually have to. I thought I was going to jump on a little bit earlier. I have to get going, but I will say that with the eggs we were talking about before, I think there's going to be a combination of both. Just like how there's mass-produced Gen 2 brains for the market, but there's catered Gen 1 brains and splicing that will allow people to curate their own Gen 1 brains. I think there could be the potential of creating and stylizing your own flufflets. Like when we think about, like me personally, I have a crown fluff, and I would love to see flufflets with crowns on them. Whether or not that's 100% confirmed. I know Cerno and Nux, when I asked, is our traits going to be transferred to flufflets, they replied with an emoji called maybe. So I'm looking forward to that. So I think there's going to be a mixture of mass adoption, Gen 2 style yield with the flufflets, and then also curating with your egg and incubating different styled flufflets for the community that really wants to make their own style with the egg incubation and breeding.
There goes that egg floor price again. Atari, I totally agree with you, Tybo. Totally agree with you. The eggs are going to play a major role. And right now, they're a very reasonable entry point too. So the potential of having beneficial results from having more than one, we're going to see. Atari, what have you got for us, mate?
What's up, Mo? First of all, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we've got a good mic check on you, buddy.
Okay, awesome. So I got to throw in the gods and goblins because, you know, I'm a goblin maxi since we haven't talked about it yet. Formerly known as Goblin Town, which for those that don't know, there was another Goblin Town project and it's now known as Gods and Goblins. I wanted to talk about the sacrifice mechanics, what you guys think, if they're going to be based on rarities, backpacks. Obviously, we know voids look like they're going to be the ones sacrificed. And also, I just want to say, I don't think that goblins are necessarily villains based on the lore that I've read. And I just wanted to get some thoughts from you guys. I know you're very into this. What you think about gods and goblins and the mechanics.
I'll throw it over to the Brains Trust in just a moment, but I am really interested in this because as I got into this a little bit later than everybody else in this room and started my journey with gods and goblins basically being the first new exciting part of the ecosystem being built, I've had a lot of focus there. So securing seekers that were in the void obviously played a massive role in my decision making there too. As I said before, I have no idea how I'm going to explain sacrificing seekers to my accountant, but I've got one called Mo Meta, and he's going in the fires. Anybody else in the room have any ideas about gods and goblins? I'd love to speculate on this one.
I think it's going to be interesting to see for like the seekers, the addition of them, because one thing that's been really odd is within the space right now, I think certain collections are being thrown out in the terms of, oh, there's too many NFTs. And specifically when you look at seekers within the FLUF World ecosystem, you're like, wait, 40,000 NFTs, holy hell, that's like a lot, right? When in actuality, the supply for those are going to be a lot smaller, and the seekers are going to be turned into nodes as well. I don't know if it's all of them or some of them, but it's something to kind of be aware of, that a burn is coming. And we've seen certain collections have a burn, and it's been really good in the terms of just getting the community hyped up over some kind of like an event that's happening, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, it's been a really important part of the lore, having these gods and goblins. They've really brought that story to life. They've added a lot of balance to it as well, which is so important because lore is what buys us time. When we're in this bear market, we're holding on to these assets. Rather than saying when, we can read the stories, we can go on the journey. So having great lore, and the gods and goblins are bringing that in by the bucket load, is amazing. Savon, what do you reckon?
You just said it right there. I think when I think of gods and goblins, I think of kind of the overworld. I have it inextricably linked to the third kingdom, in the sense that my intuition is that project is going to be effectively like the base world of the third kingdom, and the lore glue that pulls together where they want to take Futureverse in these different ways. Because I don't necessarily think Gods and Goblins itself was fully planned initially, but more so, we have to keep in mind how this roll-up took place over years and years and years. They may have gotten to a point and said, you know what, for the sake of cohesion, we need some sort of thing to ground all of these different projects that are coming into this space, and how can we do that in a way that's still, one based on, I guess, not animals but creatures, but gives itself some flexibility to have a very different feel to it, that really delineates, like the burrow being underground. Like, okay, so what's above ground? And gods and goblins, that is what is above ground. And so I think of things like, Grand Theft Auto, but set more of like a Lord of the Rings kind of landscape. There was a Lord of the Rings game a few years back. But yeah, I think that's going to be critical. And to your point, Sheila, with the burn of the Seekers, keeping in mind the silo is not just for the Futureverse, and that any and all projects that want to have some sort of form of direct communication within these different environments, could, in theory, lean on what Silo is building. And so if Seekers are mandatory to have, if you want to run a node, once again, these are sort of the things that the power users really do once something really gains traction. And we see what kind of went on with Helium, and we see just different forms of being able to capture some of the value that's being generated in the network, but also add to its resiliency to further enhance its decentralization. And I think that that's a big place, and where nodes or Seekers come into play. And I'm also going to go on a limb and say that within this third world kingdom, gods and goblins, the little tinkerers or the blacksmiths, that there'll be some mechanism to reconstruct these Seekers as well by finding parts sometime down the road.
Yeah, we all love the Seekers. It's when I've been explaining the Web3 or crypto world in the past, and people are saying, you mean Bitcoin? I'd be like, no, I wouldn't talk about other finance. I'd talk about something like VeChain with supply chain and how it had actual benefits for tracking carbon and knowing if a BMW had been written off at some point, and being able to explain real utility through what the blockchain can offer. And that's the same with the Seekers. They're a really good one to say, well, no, they're not just funny little avatars that run around in a game. They actually have all these use cases. There's communications, there's possibly a payment layer. Now, with the Futureverse being across so much different stuff, I really did want us just to jump around everywhere it can possibly go. Now, Central Pay and digital ID. This is going to be a massive part for KYC with the Futureverse and the root network and everything that's being built. I'm not in New Zealand. NFT bro, do you know any more about this or how that side of things works in New Zealand? Big question. Sorry to throw that at you, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, look, I'm not following that too closely. The only thing that I've seen come out is around the Central Pass. It's one of 4 IDs now that are accepted by the New Zealand government. So, again, I'm not sure of all the details around that, but I think that's a pretty big achievement there to have the first digital identity accepted by the New Zealand government done by Central Pass.
Yeah, and I guess being on the App Store and all these other things, they're really leading the way. Jerry, what do you have to add to this one? You'll be good at this.
Yeah, not so much about the identity piece, although I'm sure it's not into it. Just wanted to mention that the Immersive team with the payment rails have a partnership with MasterCard that seems to have been largely overlooked. So hopefully that helps people, basically the world over, make payments through the root network and the Futureverse rails.
Absolutely. Like, there's just so much going on in this ecosystem. That's why we need all of us to try and stay on top of it. I don't make nearly as much content as you guys at the moment. Unfortunately, I can't, but I'll try and add value in other ways. Now, we're coming close to time. We're going to wrap things up real soon. What I'd really like to do, and now, are there any projects in the Futureverse you think we should have touched on more? Because if there are, now's the time to raise your hand and jump into it if there's something you're super passionate about. Obviously, we've got Adam Car Club and so many other things going on. But what I'd really like to do for final thoughts is just go around all the speakers that are on stage that are guests today. And if there's something you could, say, recommend or advice that you would give to a new content creator, especially for the ladies out there in the room. I'd really like to see some of the females in our space, because we're a very open, inclusive space, the Futureverse, who'd be interested in making content in the future. What advice would you possibly give to someone who's thinking about being a content creator and making their first video? Sheila, you got anything for me?
Yeah, I mean, don't be afraid of the fact of doing stuff with like nobody watching. I know that might sound super weird, but I can throw on a stream right now and sure, it all looks like, okay, go to the YouTube or the Twitter and it looks like a decent following. And honestly, sometimes I'm doing it for nobody, one person, two, it doesn't really matter. But over time, once you find something that you're really interested in and able to present it in a way that others will find interesting or valuable, that's when things really kind of take off. And the only reason that I had success early on was because Top Shot at the time was really the biggest thing in the world. So I had kind of like a really weird lucky chance that it kind of elevated me. And I think that there's going to be probably the biggest amount of opportunities similar to that over the next couple of years with these different protocols, NFTs, blockchains coming out. So really, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Web3, but the opportunity is really there for anybody that wants to take it.
Right, I'll jump to Love for Crypto. I'll just quickly hear your closing thought.
Yeah, I think Sheila killed it for anyone wanting to do content. Just make sure you're interested in it yourself. As long as you're interested in it, you'll be interested in doing the videos, and then it's just a matter of figuring out what works best for you. It's as long as you're enjoying it, what else matters? It's as simple as that for me.
Yeah, if you're not passionate about what you're covering, it's an absolute waste of time even doing it. People will know. And you will get bored doing it. It's only fun if you love it. Like we all are very passionate about the Futureverse. All right, so I'd like to jump over to NFT, bro. If there's anything you would like to add, especially if something you would have done differently when you started your channel, or any advice you could give.
Yeah, I think importantly, like has already been said, find your niche, find something that you're passionate about or already spending time doing or looking into. And then the other big one for me is I'm actually quite a perfectionist. And so I didn't start creating for a long time because I was so concerned about having the best technology or having perfect videos. And in the end, I thought, you know what, let's just see if this is actually feasible. And I just started putting some videos out and I learned pretty quickly what was working, what wasn't working, what looked good, what didn't. I think it is probably important to make sure you've got a decent microphone, especially if you're doing Twitter spaces or anything like that. But yeah, just get started. Just start creating the content. I think that's the big thing for me. Just start creating. Don't worry too much about the perfection to begin with.
100%. Just put something out and buy a decent mic. That's all you need. OBS is free. You can use your phone as a camera. Everything else is straightforward. But if you get a decent mic with a router, if you don't know how to do that, reach out to us. Reach out to me. I'm in a DM and I'll help you through that. All right, Jerry, what would you like to add?
Yeah, just echoing everybody's thoughts there that content creation, it's really a skill that you have to learn by repetition. So sort of like Josh was just saying there, you're not going to be perfect on day one. I think I've pumped out about 140 odd videos now, and I'm still only just finding my way, to be honest, and starting to feel confident in front of the camera. So it takes time. Just be kind to yourself, be authentic, and you've really just got to start somewhere. So like you said, just using a smartphone, that's something, and you're going to get instant feedback as to how it's going. So basically, there's no better time to start than now.
Beautiful, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And you don't have to have a voice like Savon to be able to play in the sandpit. All right, buddy, what would you recommend, Savon?
Yeah, really just to be able to execute on what everybody has suggested, I would recommend setting some sort of quota that you want to hit. Maybe that's one piece of content a month. Maybe it's, two, maybe it's one a week. It's only going to make sense for you. Don't try to bite off more than you can chew, but finish things and get them out the door, because that's going to be how you improve on the skills, and try not to let that perfectionism put you into paralysis. So I would say do that. And then a little bit, contrary to what some have recommended, I wouldn't worry about a niche out the gate. I think worrying about a niche is often a way of overcommitting early on. And then there can be all these other doubts that come, oh, can I make content for the next 3 years about this one thing? Like, no. Have an idea, do the idea, and then do that several times, because it's also going to show you, you may have more fun doing one sort of content versus another. One sort of methodology. Maybe you like videos more than audio, maybe vice versa, but set a quota, try to get that done, and really just go off of the ideas that get you most excited, and figuring out the audience, the niche, all of that will come down the road.
I agree 100%. And you can't be afraid to pivot either. If something changes, then you just have to change with it. If your emotions and your passion change, you've got to go with that and go in that direction. Now, the most important, everyone in this room, the best thing you guys can all do, you don't have to add value to the level that we're trying to create it by making these videos. What you can do to add value to this ecosystem is simply go to these people's channels. Follow everyone that's on stage, go and watch their videos and just like it. By liking a video, you add an incredible amount of value to the ecosystem. And that gives us the understanding that what we're doing, we're on track, we're doing the right thing, and encourages us to do more. All right, guys, I'm rounding everything up here. It's been an amazing chat. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Shout out to all my guests on stage today. And I really look forward to hopefully doing something very similar in the near future. All right, guys, throw some emojis around. It's been great.
Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and maybe consider watching one of my other videos. Bunnies up!